Alright, so ladies and gentlemen, I think we're ready for our last fireside chat of the day. We'll be embarking on a captivating journey of a lender's house rebuilding in the past year, with exclusive footage capturing almost a year of development, gain invaluable insights into the pitfalls and challenges of rebuilding a landed home. Whether you're considering rebuilding yourself or buying from a developer, this discussion is essential to avoid costly mistakes in your journey. Don't miss out on this 30-minute session. And please join me, put your hands together to welcome the Associate Listing Lead PropertyLimBrothers, Mr. George Peng, Co-founder and Managing Director of Chartered Building Surveyor, ZLC, Mr. Jake Yeoh, and last but not least, the moderator for this session, Mr. Melvin Lim, Co-founder and CEO of PropertyLimBrothers. A round of applause, please, ladies and gentlemen.
Everyone. Hello. Hi, everybody. Hi. Welcome back. This is Fireside Chat together with Jake as well as George. So what happened was that last year, if you have been to our Landed Convention at Pan Pacific during May of 2023, we invited a guest to come up. And this guest is very special because those were our clients who George had successfully helped them to purchase a brand new landed back then. And that was in 2023. So what has happened since then was that they have allowed us and given us permission to document the journey from the day that they bought the place until today, which they have just received TOP status. And we went back month by month to document the entire construction process. So later we're going to play like a loop video. But meantime, allow me to just share with you an introduction video first so everybody can see the context of this home that they have purchased. Now let's play the intro video.
Very excited because this is actually one of our clients' house that we helped to purchase about 1 odd years ago. This land plot, very beautiful. The demolition actually started work back then. Back then it was single story with steps climbing up. Fast forward to 9 months now, this is actually the house that is standing right behind us. Absolutely gorgeous. What we want to do is to walk you through how this house has actually transformed. So let's go. Okay, so just to give some context, this is a land size of 1501 square feet. Plot width is about 6.1 meters, depth is about 20 over meters. So this is in a 2-story mixed standard zoning. This is currently a 2-story with mezzanine. The developer do it in such a way that they play around with the height control, but yet it doesn't compromise in terms of the number of bedrooms. How it was like back then is just single story, of course with a segregation of like the living rooms as well as the bedrooms. So these are all done as per drawing. So timeline wise, 9 months ago, tear down. Right now, this is the current structure. Today, of course, if you buy, you can appoint a contractor or an architect and then have all these things done. That is one. Or you can do the other way around, which is just like what our clients did. Buy direct from a developer and then you can just sort out in terms of the payment milestone. To break down the timeline, I would say give yourself 5 to 6 months in terms of the pre-con survey as well as ironing out your own requirements and plans and submit to BCA for approval. So that will be about 4 to 5 months plus minus. From there on, from the point that the hoarding is up until TOP, you can probably set aside 1 year. That will be the point of time when you TOP, and then of course you can collect the keys and then get the CSC before handing over to the owners. So that will be the rough timeline that you would expect from buying a single story to rebuild to this current state.
All right, thank you. So a quick backdrop on why this case study is a bit interesting because we find that it will be quite valuable if we can bring George to share on the decision-making kind of metrics that the buyers have back then because they were contemplating between a Cat 2 home versus a Cat 4 home. So this is a Cat 4 home that they have bought and purchased from a developer who has developed it. And of course, both of them allowed us to document the entire process of the whole rebuilding phase. I also wanted to bring in Jake because we wanted Jake to come in and share his advice and opinion on what are some of the things that we need to take note of in the event. Firstly, if we were to rebuild ourselves, or secondly, if we were to purchase from a developer who is still building the house. Some things that we need to take note from a buyer's perspective Firstly, to safeguard our interests. Secondly, also just to see how we can partner with the builder or developer on a very smooth basis. All right, so maybe George can share a little bit, because I remember you mentioned that the buyers back then were contemplating between offering for a Cat 2 home at Leo Crescent, right?
Yeah.
And then after that, you found this home for them. It was something that was still constructed by a developer, inter-terrace, 1,005 square feet, and quantum-wise is quite similar. Maybe you can share a little bit of backdrop.
So back then, which I believe a lot of buyers on the ground, they will also probably have this dilemma: should I go for something that is maybe a slightly bigger land plot, but maybe it's on a Category 2 type of house? So naturally, for that, based on your entry price, perhaps you need to plus say about $500,000 or $800,000 in terms of your A&A or renovation, to bring up to probably a Cat 3 or Cat 3.5. So that was exactly what was in some of the buyers' mind, and that was exactly in the minds of the buyer. So I think inherently when we look at some of the landed homes, some of them, when you want to say you want to add in a lift, due to its natural characteristics, they are not able to. And because they kind of want to future-proof, and then when they take a look at the previous home that they wanted to buy, certain structures they can't tear down to accommodate to their lifestyle. And hence they were kind of like deciding, hey, should I be going for something that is maybe at the same overall price quantum, but they have to take on additional loan in terms of A&A, which also means a higher cash outlay, or they go for something that is at this price range of $4.8 million, brand new, and then they can amortize based on their entry price. So eventually their decision matrix is they want to save the hassle, let everything be done by the developer, and then also in terms of financing, they can amortize the full 75%, and then they buy into this one, a Cat 4 that have a good number of bedrooms, as well as the lift, also in view of a better exit strategy. So that was what's in their mind.
Thanks, George. So the comparison was between a Cat 2 home, 4 over million, bigger land size,
yes,
versus a Cat 4 inter-terrace, $4.8 million.
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe from our latest framework that we introduced to our audience today, right, this Cat 2 home that they were contemplating to offer, what version of the horse framework is that?
The version of the horse is there is good characteristics, but you can't really upgrade.
Okay.
Yeah.
So good characteristics, but tough to upgrade.
Tough to upgrade, yeah.
Okay.
Because you can't say you add in like additional rooms, you can't add in lift.
That means you cannot value add already.
Yeah,
in terms of
correct.
it's quite maxed out.
Yeah, it's quite maxed out.
But it belongs to Cat 2. So that means it will make sense to tear down and rebuild it. Okay, great. Then how about the new version? Is it an enhanced horse or Stella horse?
I would say Stella.
Okay. Okay, great. So while we are looping this video, maybe let's loop the video. Yeah, so this is the one, month 0 to month 9. I'm very curious, why is it that this house achieved TOP in 9 months? Because traditionally, Jake, correct me if I'm wrong, what is usually the bare minimum timeline? Is it like 1.5 years to 2? But this home seems to be able to achieve TOP in 9 months. Why is that so?
Okay, afternoon everybody. My name is Jake. Yeah, so again, thanks to Melvin and George for having me here. So a standard timeline for a rebuilding, logically speaking, no COVID, it's about 14 months to 18 months. So this is a remarkable achievement to get this done in, say, 9-10 months. So there must be some back-end story on this to get it done in such a speedy affair.
Yeah. So George, what's one of the core reasons?
Okay, so maybe I add on then, Jake can correct me if I'm wrong. So I think for construction, there's usually 2 phases. One is the pre-con survey, and then the other one is from construction onwards. So when we shortlisted this unit, the pre-con survey have all been done, submission of plans have all been done. So that will usually save buyers at least about 5 to 6 months. So when the offer and all that has been accepted, what the developer will do is they'll just immediately kickstart the demolition, and they are able to speed up that process. I think on top of that, I think also because they pour in quite a substantial amount of manpower in order to achieve the TOP status in at about 8.5 months. So I think The buyers, they themselves were also shocked. They didn't expect to move in so fast. Yeah.
So now they're renovating already.
Now they are renovating the units.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, impressive. So this is like 5 bedrooms with lift, 2.5 story, about 4,006 square feet.
Yeah, built up. Yep.
Okay, great. Let me turn over to Jake. So Jake, I think what's interesting will be to share with our audience, like if let's say you are in a similar position, whether you are buying from a developer who is still in the midst of constructing, or you intend to appoint a builder and architect yourself and then to commence that stage yourself. Maybe from the first phase, in terms of the submission portion, what are some things to take note of as a homeowner?
Okay, Melvin always asks me the toughest question. So from a homeowner perspective, or when you want to start planning, I think the key thing is that the brief itself has to be very clear. So meaning basement, no basement, I need to have a loft, double volume ceiling. So long your user requirements are very clearly defined, your architect, your QP, they call it the qualified persons, the architects are fully in tune to what you want. So in that regard, the submission itself, as you do the first lot, it's almost like a bullseye. One shot, you get it all cleared up. The difficulty is when that after we gone in, as we wake up on the wrong side of the bed, we start to think, hey, actually, I decide to have 6 more walk-in wardrobes, 7 more toilets, and things like that. So that's the extreme. But if there are deviations from the requirements, then practically it's a retrack and resubmission. So whatever time that we need for usual processing by the government service, say 3 weeks, 2 weeks, all the way to 3 months, everything will be reset. So from the standpoint of the planning, if your requirements are very, very sharp and no U-turn, I think we will be expecting 3 months of ding-dong and to get the approvals ready to commence work. Yep.
Right. Can I ask a question about soil testing? So let's say a buyer intends to buy a Cat 1 home with an intent to rebuild. But of course, you haven't made an offer at that point in time, so it can be a bit sensitive. Certain owners might be a bit worried about the request to do soil tests and all that. So is a soil test necessary to safeguard the interests as a buyer that intends to rebuild?
Okay. So again, this is another tough question. So if we have seen how a soil test, or rather what they call a soil investigation report is being done. So we imagine now we are in the Arab countries, they have this big drilling machine going through your backyard and this thing goes through your ground. So this is the same version of what a soil test does. So literally you got to set up a tripod. For our male here, now you set your basha, your tripod. So imagine that to be bigger 100 times. So this machine then goes through down the soil and digged out. And most of the time, it will be powered by diesel. So imagine you're there staying, and your neighbors are doing the setup, and the go through. So as a mindset, your neighbors will be thinking what's going on. And as the user, the person staying there is very, very intrusive. It's very, very pervasive. Okay? But at the same time, what we see are only the visual items. We don't see what's underneath. So essentially, it's very critical to do a soil investigation, but we cannot do it, or practically it's very difficult to do when somebody is staying inside. And with the soil test, then you're able to decipher the stratum of the soil. So different geographical location has different soil formation. Different soil formation then result in you designing your substructure, whether it's a pile system, a raft system, so on and so forth. So it's essentially required, but in terms of timing-wise, we have to manage the buyers.
In reality, like dealing with a resale market kind of position, it might be a bit hard for that to be achieved.
Yes.
So if let's say that is difficult to be achieved on a reality level, because most properties for sale, let's say Cat 1, there are owners staying there and stuff like that, and they definitely would not want to allow you to do a soil test. So what are certain level of safeguards that a buyer can have with the intent to rebuild, not able to do soil tests, but visually, what can we do?
Okay, a very good proxy would be to stare at what your neighbors have been doing, or the intended area. So if your neighbors along the same street, 6 of them are redeveloping and going to 3.5. Okay, so that's a good sign that soil-wise, it allows you to do so. And because we are only doing visual, we are doing a lot of inference, proxy inference to do so. And the other thing is also tapping on the QP's knowledge. A lot of QPs basically, once you've done the soil test, this database actually stays with them. So if you have enough friends or enough contacts, enough main con who has, contacts, they actually have know that, oh, this area, within specific area of a certain soil stratum. I think that's the best approach that we can do.
Thanks, Jake. George, I remember that time you mentioned, because this is a very unique situation where the house has not been demolished yet, when your buyers make an offer and purchase it successfully. And then, because of that status, the developers were flexible to discuss certain variations of layout according to their needs. Maybe share a little bit about the process.
Okay, so in fact, the reconstruction can be done faster, but because there was changes in terms of what the owner wants, so when we see the plan, that has already been submitted to BCA by the developer. But naturally, as buyers, you want to have some flexibility in terms of creating this kind of design and space that you want. So we itemize all those changes, and then I think it resulted in about $200,000 in terms of submission costs, in terms of all the variation order, the architect, time frame. So this again was resubmitted, and then before they can actually start the work. Yeah. Right. So there was a lot of conversation that was taking place between the builders, architects, as well as the buyers.
Right. So Jake, let's say for example, I'm a home buyer, and then my architect and builder has already submitted the plan to BCA, but then suddenly, like 2 weeks later, I have a change of plans, and maybe my wife said, hey, I really need one more bedroom, let's put in a 7th bedroom. Like, how will this affect the timeline? Usually, like resubmission, variation order with BCA part, how long does it take?
Okay. We for the purpose of information, we will take it that it's going to be a retract and resubmit. So there are two components, or rather two things to consider. The minute you do a resubmission, there will be a fee incurred. So Akong, meaning the authorities will say, okay, you might need to relook at your drawings, there's going to be a cost. And generally, when there's more man hours to redesign, the qualified persons, architect or engineer, will have a cost to that. Timeline-wise, as I shared earlier on, I will consider this as a reset. So the timeline you need to set aside minimally 2 to 3 months as a reset. In some cases where you can argue or justify that your changes are insignificant, then maybe the timeline will be shorter. But for the purpose of planning, you plan as a reset. You take it down and resubmit again.
Also, can I ask like a horror story kind of question? Is that once, let's say after you found a builder yourself or architect yourself, then you find that your construction is being delayed by the builder, what can you do?
Very tough. So now I wear my hat as a surveyor, not as a builder. Okay, so in construction, there's a lot of check and balances. One of the mechanism to do so will be this thing called the RTO. The other mechanism is what they call the QS, Quantity Surveyor. RTO meaning Resident Technical Officer. So on two fronts is that by right, your progress payment are tagged to the amount of work that is completed. And as laymen, as homeowners, actually we do not know what is 5% versus 7% versus 10% of work done. Hence, for some projects, you appoint a professional called a quantity surveyor to translate what is on ground to then numbers, to then percentage, to then payment. Okay? So, and it's a monthly affair. As owners, I think if you have appointed a QS, very quick, within 2 months, if you know that things are lagging, this thing will be flagged to you. That's number one. Then likewise for the RTO, RTO is an independent technical person who does all the progress. So again, based on reports from say the RTO and the QS, as a homeowner, you should be a bit mindful. Then at the same time, if the main contractor is claiming less money from you, I think you also should be a bit worried. So I think these are the fallback. So of course, what can you do? The whole contract is where it matters. So example, if your contract is 15 months, within certain milestones, if you are falling short in the first 3 months, there is an effort, there is a consensus to catch up. And it's possible. I think in construction, there's also a lot of parallel works and there could be catching up, parallel teams, so on and so forth. So there are ways to do so. So to really answer, or rather to give advice on this is, as owners, I feel that you should be also diligent in where you do. Don't over-control, but you appoint the right person to justify and check the sequence of works. And be very sensitive. If I don't need to pay for 3 months, doesn't mean it's a good news. Sometimes paying more is actually better because overall it's projecting. Then also, the contract administrator is actually your architect. So that's why architect is very important. The architect is the contract administrator. They have the power, or in fact, they are the master consultant to push things. If I do faster, I'm able to be eligible for more claims. So architects should also be triggered and to basically push the project faster.
And of course, a background check on the credentials and all that. Okay, maybe let's talk a little bit about if let's say buyers go on the ground with an intent to rebuild, and they are trying to maybe mentally calculate a ballpark figure. Like example, if I see this inter-terrace, but it's a huge one, the land plot is like 2,000 square feet, and I want to mentally think about. And let's say this happens to be like a 3.5-story zone or 2.5-story zone. How do I do a mental calculation on different types of landed? Or what is the total build-up I can build? And what is like the rough estimate current costing in terms of PSF level on the build-up? Yeah, so I remember there's a formula, like example, inter-terrace will be like, take the land size times 3.5, then times a certain level of percentage. Then you roughly will have that total build-up. Then you can multiply by the PSF figure.
Yes. Again, another tough question by Melvin. Personally, I don't recommend such formulas because such formulas will, in a way, either overinflate or undervalue. So the best way, textbook answer, the best way is you appoint a right person to do a feasibility study. Okay, so what I mean by right person to do a feasibility study, it means that you have a builder, a design build builder, or an architect that is able to superimpose the land plot that you like and do the necessary setback. Because every land plot is unique. You have your Cat 1, Cat 2, or whichever category of roads, you have your unique, and some even with the big drain behind, there's also a unique setup. So with an architect, and architects are trained for that, that's why you pay architect well for that. You do it well, you do your land size well, then you very quickly you can know whether it's a 3.5, 4-story. Once you have the 3.5, say 3.5-story decked up, you have your area decked up. With this area, it is then meaningful to churn out the estimated construction costs. So this is where you need to subscribe, or rather work to a builder that subscribe to BCA Construction Infonet. I'm not sure BCA is here or not, but they have a published info that they summarize yearly, quarterly, what is the published construction rate. So for example, if I have this land plot, I do out my 3-story, 3.5-story, I change out to a 4,000 square feet. So 4,000 square feet, this built up, can then multiply by a construction cost. So typically, as our dear Brian has shared earlier on, anything from 350, 375, 400. So for estimation, same, you should base it near to about 375 per square feet to $400 per square feet. I do need to highlight that every plot is different, every category of home is different, and every type of land is also different. So if you develop a corner terrace, inter-terrace, semi-D, and a detached, the cost will be different as well. But for a very quick number, the area times 375 to 400 is a good sensing of costing. Yep.
Thanks, Jake. So back to George, is that when that time your clients make a decision on Surveyor Crescent, how do they think in terms of, like, other than the quantum comparing to the Cat 2 home, did they look at the total build-up? What are some of the other aspects that they were looking at that finally allow them to click with this home?
So I think buyers nowadays are getting quite smart and smarter and smarter. So the first question is, if I buy, 5 years later, I want to sell, will this be easy to sell? So there'll be a few things that we want to take a look at. Number one would then be the number of bedrooms. In terms of the livable space, is it something that is, good enough for us to be able to find a wider crowd of audience? In terms of the area, would there be a very healthy kind of transactions that will still be able to allow me to exit in future? So on top of that, I think what they also look at is in terms of like what Melvin mentioned, in terms of the quality and the track records. So to the extent we even view some of the other units that has been done by the same developer, so that they can see for themselves what is the final product after it has been built. So number of bedrooms, lift, I think all these check the boxes in terms of what we have been talking about in terms of the framework that still allow us to exit. I would say the most key important factor is even if you don't have a lift, if there's a provision of lift, but bedrooms matters a lot. Yeah, so I think based on that aspect, they decided to pull the trigger.
Right, thanks. Maybe let's come back to Jake to share like a few popular trends now in terms of what buyers are looking on the ground for, like in the year 2024, number of bedrooms, certain aspects like pool and all that kind of stuff. Like maybe just share a few popular trends that you are seeing.
Okay. The few ones are this concept called universal friendly design. So universal friendly design means that from the onset of my gate all the way to the backyard, I do not have any raised curb. So technically, if I have a push trolley with my groceries, I can park the car, I can push all the way to the back. Yeah, so it also double up as a wheelchair-friendly design. So universal-friendly design, I think it's more regarded now. In fact, there are some ID or even architect firms that stamp on this, that, hey, this is the way to go moving forward. The other trend is also on lifts, to maximize every floor, permissible height. I think you want to reach to the highest, and you also want to enjoy to have your grandma to be able to go to the attic as a mahjong room, to have the lift to access to that. So lift is also a very highly considered component. The other thing is both the EV as well as the solar. Actually, these two tie hand in hand. I believe there's some sharing earlier on solar, and these are also widely considered now. And the entry price is also getting lower. The price of the car is getting higher, so the EV has to come in, and then the solar has to come in. So these are all got to be planned in mind as well. So I feel that broadly, these four are the very big trends.
How about like in your latest report that time that you shared with me for our webinar, there was an increase in demand for increased power. Yeah. Yes,
increased power. So I recently have a couple of friends, clients, to say that, hey, Jake, I actually want to have 3 electric vehicles. I say, well, if you have 3 electric vehicles, by right, you only need 1 EV charger. I say, no. Me and my wife, we cannot share the EV charger. So it's getting that kind of trend now, which is peculiar. So what it means on the technical side is that by right, 1 EV charger takes 32 amp of power. So 32 amp, you just imagine it's a huge compressor worth of aircon. So if you have 2, it means that 32 times 2, you need to have more power. So more and more people, if you're considered going to have more EVs, again, it's an isolated case. In my opinion, I think 1 EV charger can charge 2 cars. You don't charge together. But you also have higher power induction hob, your oven, your VRV aircon, and all these high power consumption. So there is really indeed a higher requirement or higher trend that architects now spec a higher power requirement. Okay, so again, I just for easy digestion, a HDB will consume 40 amp of power. Okay, imagine you have 40 gold coins. Yeah, a landed will have a standard 40 years ago will have 80 amp. That means 80 gold coins. So in today's context, normal standard developer built interterrace will have 100 amp 3-phase of power. So again, to translate in the very layman term, it just means that I have 100 gold coins times 3 pack. So these 100 gold coins is then spread to, okay, if I need to use my EV, I will use 32 gold coin. If I need to use my induction, I'll use 20 gold coin, example, things like that. So more and more of this trend of higher power, indeed. So the implication for homeowners is that, of course, everything I want big and nice, but it's on the costing. So from a SP, Singapore Power perspective, you want more power? It's possible. I need to dig the road to enhance the wiring for you. So what it means for homeowners is that the costing for Singapore Power go up quite significantly, number one. Number two, once the power goes through to your meter compartment, from the meter compartment comes through to your house DB, the cost also significantly goes up. Significantly goes up. It's technically meaning the wiring thickness of the wire. It goes up quite a fair bit. So from a homeowner perspective, not everything more is good. Sometimes we just need to moderate what is sufficient. Yep.
So I think in the report you mentioned there's an increased demand in people requesting for 150.
Yes.
Okay, like compared to the traditional 100.
100, correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
right. Okay, thanks. Maybe to end off this segment, maybe George, you can share a little bit about what are some learning points that you have seen? Because I understand that your clients have a good experience like partnering with this developer to complete this whole journey. Yeah, maybe share like one or two like things that you have learned by observing that process.
Sure. So I think what we always mention is that it's very easy for us to buy into a property, but I think it goes down to the level of due diligence that we want to do. So the due diligence goes down to the wire that we even went down to a few different properties that have already been done by the developer. So that's one. The discussion take place not just with the builder, but with the architect. I think all in, the whole discussion took place on 3 separate occasions to have greater clarity in terms of how they want to do it, and then in terms of the timeline, in terms of like, they pull out the Gantt chart just to kind of see, and then they go into the details of the floor plan. So I would suggest if you are a buyer, if you are out there looking for properties yourself, go through kind of like the track records, the past projects, have a look at the floor plan, and then to see how flexible, are they willing to undertake in terms of changes and what are the costs involved. And then based on your interaction with them, I think that will probably give you a good sensing. Of course, it can't be entirely 100% to see, whether do you feel that, okay, this partnership with this builder, will it turns out to be fruitful? And then I think, before you decide to pull the trigger. So I would say all in terms of the overall decision matrix, it took them about 3 occasions of meetups, and then total duration is about 1.5 months. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Okay, great. So I hope that everybody have a good insight and understanding from Jake as well as George. Thank you very much. Thanks, Jake and George. Let's give them a round of applause for this sharing. Yeah, and of course, if you are interested to find out a little bit more about your rebuilding journey, I think you can speak with some of the architects and our partners over here at this event. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jake, Mr. George, and Mr. Melvin for the wonderful chat. What a journey the rebuilding process must have been.